Kellyanne Conway made her decisions. Her husband made his decisions. They publicly basically trolled each other. They modeled this behavior for their 16-year-old child. So is it any surprise that one, she would even have the platform to do this, and two, that she would be acting out in this way?
I'm officially pushing for emancipation, she tweeted.
When I was 15 to 16, I was exploited by the media, preyed upon, and was forced into portraying myself as something I wasn't.
The 18-year-old daughter of conservative political personalities is opening up about her decision to pose for Playboy's content creator platform.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. Sometimes we have guests on this show, and today we have a very interesting guest on this show. We have sort of crossed paths on the internet. We'll get to that in the duration of this interview, but you may know her from season 19 of American Idol. You may know her because she's a public figure that you follow on social media. Maybe you've kept up with her activism. You also may know her because she is the daughter of Kellyanne Conway and George Conway. And maybe there was a tumultuous period in her life right around 2020 that many in the news media were picking up and reporting on, all from different angles. Her name is Claudia Conway. Claudia Conway, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you. Let's talk about how this actually came to be, because I was doing a live stream one day and I got a super chat from none other than you, and you're saying, you know, I've been watching your videos. I'd love to come on the show and have a chat. Tell me a little bit about that. What brought about that super chat and you wanting to connect?
I was in between meetings and I was watching, I saw that you were live, so I was watching your live stream and I was like, how funny would it be if I just sent her a super chat? Because honestly, like, I have been watching you for a while, and so I was like, why not? And I just kind of wanted to tell you, like, and I was doing it from a second YouTube account, so I wasn't sure if you would believe it was me or not, but I was just like, I need to tell her that, you know, she's kind of inspired me in a lot of ways, and as my views have been changing over time and as I've been evolving and growing, especially in this space and out of this space, I think that your insights on a lot of, I think we agree on a lot of things, and I think that you are so smart, and the way that you put things, I really resonate with. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, let you know, and you reach out to me, so, which was incredible, and I'm so grateful to be here right now. It's an honor,
thank you.
Truly.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much for those kind words. I was not anticipating that at all. And when I got the super chat, I'm gullible. I believed you automatically. I was like, okay, Claudia Conway's in the super chats. And I was thinking, Claudia Conway, I've heard that name before. Where have I heard it before? And I remember when I was on TikTok, which is the platform that I started on, did me and you have like a back and forth about a certain issue? I honestly cannot remember the issue or the video.
I can't remember either. But
okay.
I probably so, because when I was about 15, 16 on TikTok, I was going through a very, very hard transition in my family life. My family life was, you know, it was the pinnacle of all of these articles. You know, Kellyanne Conway this, George Conway this, Claudia Conway speaks out, their daughter speaks out, and there were a lot of tumultuous family drama that went on during that time, and I kind of was looking for an outlet, and I looked to, you know, the internet in that way, as so many people do, except I got caught doing it. You know, I blew up overnight when you're 15, and overnight you have the New York Times, the Washington Post, you know, like all these people calling your number, like, how did you get my number, and why do you want to talk to me, of all people? So we definitely did go back and forth, because I used to do that all the time with everybody, you know, because I was a very defensive little teenager who was looking for an outlet.
Yeah, and we have that in common. I think at the very same age as you were during that time, when I was that age, I was doing the exact same thing. And when I think about you and your story, I am overwhelmingly grateful that my life wasn't filmed in that way and posted for everybody to talk about, and that I wasn't part of a famous family that people had very high stakes in when it came to the election, the president. People had very vitriolic views towards your mom, others towards your dad. There was a lot going on. Now, that was all I knew about you. I had a faint memory of something that happened on TikTok. And I got to tell you, when I went to look you up to interview you today, I was a little hesitant. And it's because so much pops up when you look up your name. And I feel like I'm sort of robbing myself of the experience of getting to know you by looking into some of the things that the news media is covering. Yeah,
Totally.
And I gotta ask you, that's gotta suck, right? It's gotta suck that part of your life you're sort of frozen in because these outlets have covered you at such length for so long.
Totally. I mean, when the first article came out about me when I was 15 years old, I was at the beach with my friends. I didn't think anything of it. I was going through a rough period regarding my mom, which was, a private thing. I think that it didn't have to be as publicized as it was. And these news outlets were reaching out to me, and before you know it, I was on Fox News, I was on CNN, without my consent, really. And so after all of that happened, you're 15, you're at the beach with your friends, I was like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And when you don't know, because you've never really been thrusted into this the way I was, you don't know. Like, nobody knows. I'd never experienced this before. And so I took the reins on it a little bit, and I, did an interview here or an interview there. But most of these stories are just, people trying to exploit a teenager. They would call me a whistleblower, a White House whistleblower, because my mother worked in the White House, when in reality, I was the farthest from that. I was just a teenager. And I think that the media tried to monetize, my traumatic experiences and the rough home life that I had, which was not my fault at all. And so now, as I'm an adult and as I'm, getting older, I am trying to change that narrative. I've been trying to change that narrative slowly but surely. That's why I pull away from social media. I pull away from the public eye. I take breaks from it because it can get a lot. And when you're so young and you have a million people telling you that you are an attention seeker, that you are just rebelling. And I think that was the main thing, like Claudia Conway rebelling. And that wasn't really my intention at all, I think that I was a young girl who was going through really, really hard stuff, who was looking for an outlet. And she also had an opinion that people wanted to hear. And so I got roped into it so quickly from all angles. I mean, TikTok, Instagram, all these mainstream media outlets. I mean, I was just roped in, and I was told, hey, this is what you're going to do. You're going to say this, this, and this, and people are going to love you for it. And that's kind of what happened. So yeah, it sucked. It did suck, but I think that some good has come out of it for sure. I think that I've been able to use my platform in a way to give people more of an open mind, because that's my whole thing. It's so important to keep an open mind and to talk to other people with the same views and different views, because I grew up in a predominantly conservative Roman Catholic household. And from a very young age, I was around I was in this political environment, this political atmosphere that was predominantly, if not all, conservative and right leaning. And so I believed all these things. I met Trump when I was 12. I would go to these caucuses with my mom and these events, and, I really wanted to meet, Marco Rubio, and I really wanted to do all these things. And when I turned, 13, 14, that's when something in my brain clicked, and I was like, wait, I don't believe in that. So let me be as extreme as I possibly can, because of my home life. And that's how I was, catapulted into extreme leftism.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think we are going to get to that. No. I love that you're open about all this. We're gonna really dive into each and every point you made there, and I can't tell you how much it resonates with me. I think a lot of people fail to realize that where you grow up can really shape you as a person, whether or not you fall in line with the ideology that you grow up with, or you rebel against the ideology that you grow up with. And people forget to sort of look back and take stock of those those things. And you got caught in many a scandal, and by virtue of being in the family that you're in. And as I said, as soon as I looked up your name, article after article after article popped up. I'm going to read some of the headlines that come up when your name pops up. So we have 15-year-old Claudia Conway wants emancipation from her mother. Claudia Conway breaks silence. Claudia Conway explains why she became a Playboy bunny. Claudia Conway shares argument with mom Kellyanne on TikTok. Kellyanne Conway's daughter is not your resistance hero. She's a 15-year-old expressing frustration with her family. How American Idol used Claudia Conway. Kellyanne Conway praised by gay daughter as LGBTQ plus champion. The list goes on and on and on.
And on.
It's unbelievable. I mean, okay, we'll get to where these headlines sort of pop up from, but let me walk back because there is a you before the media was super interested in your family. What was growing up, in your life? What was that like? What was young adulthood like? What were your younger years looking like?
I grew up in theater, and I think you also said you grew up in the theater, like 100%. You were a theater kid as well.
Theater kid.
I think we have so many similarities. I grew up, a happy kid. I have 3 siblings who are the world to me. Hi guys, if you're watching. And I grew up in a very family-oriented, Roman Catholic, conservative household. And we were taught certain values and certain things that I still hold with me today. I have a cross on my neck. I've become more faithful as of recent. But a lot of the things that I was taught when I was younger, like, when it comes to like gay marriage, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to whatever, I just remember feeling very uneasy about all of that. I'm not really sure why I did. But growing up, I had a pretty happy childhood, I would say. I think that even when I wasn't in the media, my parents being in the media and being these political figures was, it was a lot. But I'm fortunate. I grew up fortunate with both my mom and my dad, 2 incredibly intelligent people. Yeah, I would say before all of this, I had a relatively normal childhood with my family being in the public eye, so.
Yeah, so you had a somewhat happy childhood. Politics sort of upends that a little bit and starts bringing in maybe a little bit of turmoil, you'd say?
Totally. I think that when it comes to my parents, and I won't speak too much about, their experience, but that played a major role in kind of, what happened with them. And it also played a major role in, my life. Like, I think that when it comes to my family, the politics were at center stage, really. Like, our house was just, there's a video of me when I was 3 years old, and it's me after we went to Disneyland, and I'm 2.5, 3, and my dad's asking me, oh, did you go to Mickey's house? Did you like the castle? And I'm saying, like, no, I didn't like the castle. And he's like, well, why didn't you like the castle? And I'm saying, oh, because there was a witch there. And he was like, well, who's the witch? What's the witch's name? And I was like, Hillary. Her name was Hillary. So I heard so much about politics that when I was younger, when I was really little, I thought that like every bad person was Hillary Clinton. Like, I was convinced that like any evil person on TV, like their name was Hillary. So that kind of is a glimpse into how I grew up. But the politics, when I became a teenager and I was kind of breaking out of those adolescent years, I think when it came to my mom and I have always had a very close yet rough relationship. It's very different now, I'm happy to say, but that played a major role in it.
That's interesting because a lot of people, I think that these political conversations are left unabsorbed by their children, so they continue to go back and forth about these things, or they argue at family events, not knowing that your little child is actually absorbing everything that you say. When I was a child, the villains in my household were Andrew Breitbart and James O'Keefe, these major conservative figures. Yeah. So we have that in common. At what point does Trump enter your life in here. So you have a relatively happy childhood. Politics comes in and taints it. And then it feels like Trump is a major catalyst within your family. Just for background, for those of you who do not know, Kellyanne Conway was an advisor at the White House during the Trump administration, while your father, George Conway, was a founding member of the Lincoln Project, which is a famously anti-Trump, Republican super PAC. So when does that start, and when do you start taking that in?
So when I was about 12 years old, I was about 13 maybe. Yeah, I can't do math, sorry. I think I was about 11 to 12 years old, and I went to South Carolina with my mom for, a caucus, South Carolina caucus, and I got to meet, Ben Carson and Marco Rubio and all these people, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I was 11 and I was convinced that I was just this big conservative girl, whatever, and we met Donald Trump, and this was a little before, the election or any talks of the election, and he looked at my mom and I and said, do you guys need a ride home? And we were looking at him like, we're in South Carolina and we live in New Jersey. What are you talking about? Do we need a ride home? And he was like, come on, I'll give you a ride. Gets us on his private jet. And for me, this is something I'd never experienced before. And gets us on his private jet. And there I am, 12 years old, sitting on a private jet with Donald Trump, barely knowing who this guy is, by the way, when I'm 12. Mm-hmm. And he looks at me and says, do you think I should run for president of the United States? And I was like, sure. I was like, go ahead. Why not? Do it. And I tell this story all the time, and I don't really talk about it publicly, but it's like, who would have thought? Do you know what I mean? Like, who would have thought that this was something that would change my life and change the trajectory of my life? And so when he was elected president, I was in the 6th grade, and we moved to Washington, D.C. when I was in the 7th grade, and I was not happy about that. And that put a big rift in my family, I think, because, it was this, we had Secret Service, which a lot of people don't know. My mom had Secret Service for about a year when I was in 7th grade. And they came with us everywhere, to school. They came with us on, family trips. They came with us on everywhere. And, it's a very different experience for a child who is, one, figuring herself out, and two, is, just left her home. I was very upset about leaving home, and I was young, and I was kind of questioning, my mom's beliefs and whatever, which, you can't ever do. You can't disrespect your parents. You can't go against what they say. So that started in 2015, 2016, and my mom worked with Donald Trump. She was the longest serving member of, his administration. You can fact check me on that. But I ended up moving back to New Jersey after about a year and a half of her being in the administration because I didn't want to be here in DC anymore. And was that a decision that you sort of made and brought to them? So she stayed and you moved? Is that what I'm hearing? So I just wanted to get out of DC. I think that this environment, I think it was suffocating. It was just this political environment that as a 14-year-old, even as a 14-year-old, I was just like, this is not going to allow me to grow. I want to go to college. I want to go to school. And so I looked at a bunch of these boarding schools, and I picked, this great boarding school that I wanted to go to English for in New Jersey, back where I grew up. And, I somehow got my parents on board with that, and they sent me off. And I was in boarding school. COVID happened, and I stayed in New Jersey ever since. And now I live in New York. So I never came back to DC, but the rest of my family still lives there. But a big part of me moving away was because of my mom's involvement with the Trump administration. And I don't hold her at fault for that. I think that my mom, this goes without saying that my mom is an incredibly intelligent woman, and I have the utmost respect for her. I just think that for me, it would have done a lot more harm than good for me to have stayed in this environment. Gotcha. Yeah, I can see from that perspective of being that age and suddenly being picked up from your school and the life that you had, which when you're that age, it's probably all your friends at school, whatever your extracurriculars are. Oh my God. Right. It's like, what do you mean I'm not going to go to prom here? And my best friend lives here. And then you move over to Washington, D.C. and you're like, why the
do I have to be here? And they say, well, because of Donald Trump. You know, I can see how that could put a bad taste in one's mouth for politics in general, but for probably conservatism as well. If you're growing up in this family and it all comes to fruition that politics is what leads you to do something that you never wanted to do, that can be a hard thing to struggle through. Do you feel like at that age you were able to properly articulate that those were your feelings towards what was happening?
Definitely. I think that, you know, when I was 14, I was probably smarter than I am now, to be honest with you. I don't know what happened, but I've always been very outspoken. And I've always been very, maybe a little bit too loud, a little bit too bold. It's good and a bad thing. But I immediately was like, I don't want to be here. I don't think that this job and the politics within our family, I don't think, mixing the two is going well. I looked at my parents' relationship and I wanted nothing more but for them to work out and, for my dad to be happy and for my mom to be happy. And my sisters were really young. And there are a lot of other traumatic things that, happened to me when I was that age in regards to, not only in regards to my family, but definitely a big part of that. And I was just like, you know what, it would be better for me to stay in New Jersey. And it's not like I didn't see my mom, I just wasn't living with her constantly. I saw her, she would come back and forth because my twin brother, I have a twin brother, he ended up moving with me to go to high school in New Jersey. And so that was kind of the dynamic. I had my little sisters in DC and my brother with me in New Jersey and my parents, my dad on Twitter and my mom in the White House. And, it's a lot and it's so complicated. And it's when I tell other people about it, they can't wrap their heads around it. They're like, what are you talking about? And they're just it's so layered, those few years of my life were so layered. And this was all before TikTok came into play.
Right. And that's what I was about to ask. Where are we at on the timeline here? Because when you look up your name and we went through those headlines, it's 2020, 2020, 2020, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Claudia Conway posts these arguments with her mother, Kellyanne Conway. The police are called to the Conway household and there's an investigation. You go to New Jersey for this boarding school. Where do we go on the timeline that we end up with these recorded conversations, the TikTok controversies, the COVID-19 scandals, all this other turmoil that people hear about?
Totally. So in 2019, the fall of 2019, I was 14 years old and I had just started high school. And I started high school at this really great boarding school in New Jersey that I was, I just really wanted to get away. And COVID hit that March of 2020 and I moved back to DC with my family during COVID. So that I think started a lot of things. My relationship with, my mom and my family, it took a massive hit. And I think that there are a lot of things that are unhealed and whatever that came up during that time. And it was not pretty. And I did not blow up on TikTok until July of that year. So it was around July 4th weekend. I was at the beach with my friends and I woke up and I had 1 million views on something I posted. And it was just, I don't even know what it was, but it wasn't anything important. And, my mother, I don't think she liked that very much, that I had these different views and that I was on the internet talking about them. And by that time, our relationship had been, very, very rocky. And so, I was a teenager. What are you going to do? You're going to take to the internet about it. You're going to look for an out. You're going to look for people to try to help you out of the situation because I genuinely felt very helpless, emotionally. I felt very isolated emotionally within my family. I felt like I didn't know where to go, what to do. And so that's how I kind of went to social media. That's where the recording conversations, and the police and whatever, which I've never ever called the police on my mother. My mother has never called the police on me. Those were other people online who called the police on me, my family, whatever. And they'd been doing that for years and years before, TikTok. So I took to the internet and I was like, you know what? This is what's going on in my life. And I thought it was really important to kind of show the world that you can grow up in this environment and come out like a completely different person. You can grow up with these parents and come out a completely different person. And, not every life behind a picket fence in a White House is perfect. also. I think that I have a lot of privilege and I can recognize that, you know, with how I grew up, and I, you know, I'm very fortunate, but that doesn't mean my life was easy. That doesn't mean that, you know, growing up was easy. And I think that was something important that I wanted to share, and I could have done it in a better way, I can admit. And I do think that a lot of the things I did when I was that age were immature and also not tastefully done. I don't regret it as much as I learned from it. You know, instead of looking at these things like, oh, that was a mistake, I shouldn't have done that. Like, wow, I really, you know, I look at them like, you know, I learned from that and I'm never going to do that again. And I hope that other people can look at that and, you know, say, this is how you handle a situation, not this. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting because, we'll get into viewing these things in hindsight. I think, incidentally, what happened is in posting the videos of what was happening behind the scenes with your family, you became a very useful tool for the media on the left, and then the right had to respond. In looking at the divide in the way that you are covered, if you look up any left-leaning publication, you are covered as this sort of abused child who is the product of two conservative parents who loved politics more than they loved her, and every left-leaning article is covering you that you are crying out for help, that the police need to investigate these situations. Then on the right, you are covered as, you know, Claudia Conway, the liar. She's drumming up, these stories within her family and filming them because she hates Donald Trump and she hates Kellyanne, and we need to protect Kellyanne Conway. It's very interesting to see the way that you are covered. Do either of those characterizations resonate with you? Do you feel like either of those are on the nose?
Yeah, so when it comes to, I'll start with the left-leaning side. So I would not say that I, was this, there are a lot of people in really abusive and, situations, awful situations. And while I was in a bad situation for a time, I'm not going to say, I was abused, whatever, because to take away from that, I think that's extreme. I think that's extreme to talk about my situation. However, the left was very much like, they took advantage of me in terms of, her parents are Kellyanne Conway, George Conway, she's conservative. And, they used the trauma that I was experiencing as a way to be like, this is our new pariah. This is the Gen Z voice of change. She's a leftist. She's this, she's that. And they kind of put me on this little pedestal. Like, she needs help and we're going to help her. We're going to take her in, And at the time I was like, great, this group of people accepts me and, cares about me, but it's just a bunch of people online. Whereas with the right, it was very, very hard, to be honest, to look at all of these headlines and news outlets calling me a liar, calling me an attention seeker, because I've never lied about anything. I, only spoke my truth, and if I, said things in an extreme way, then I said things in an extreme way, but it didn't make it less true, So I can resonate and not resonate with both sides. I think that some of the right-wing media headlines were like, she... maybe, she just wants attention, whatever. And maybe that's true, maybe I don't really remember. I don't think I sat down and was like, yeah, I want attention. I don't think I would do that, or that was my intention. But, on the right side, it was hurtful to see people calling me a liar and whatever, because when you're so young, it's like, how can you call a 15-year-old, a liar? How can you blast a 15-year-old on the internet, blast her body, blast her, I was very overly sexualized too in the media when I was 15 years old and 16 years old. On both sides, right and left. They sexualized me in the most disgusting way possible. And that, I didn't want to leave my house at a point, I felt so disgusted by myself, and it wasn't like I was doing anything wrong. But both sides, I kind of lean more towards the left side, because while they were still exploiting me and they were still using my hardships, my trauma as like a way to get money, a way to, monetize it, everything. I kind of lean it toward there because I was like, oh, well, they're saying these nice things about me. And so that's kind of where I went wrong, because I think that when you're 15, nobody should be writing about you in the first place. That's insane. I don't even think 15-year-olds should be on TikTok. I don't even think I should have been on TikTok in the first place. But I can slightly resonate with both sides, but mostly no. I think that most of these headlines that you see about me, you look up Claudia Conway, anybody that knows me, I mean, we laugh at these videos, these articles. We're like, who are they talking about? Because it's not me.
Interesting. So what I know a very common piece of criticism that you're going to receive, and maybe even on this video, is you posted the videos publicly and therefore you opened yourself to everything that follows. What do you want to say to those people?
Totally. I agree with you. I think that accountability is super important, and I take full accountability for anything that I did to open myself up to being exploited. However, that does not justify the media taking advantage of a 15 to 16-year-old girl. I think that, my little sisters are on TikTok, they're on Instagram or whatever, and if anybody were to try to exploit them, someone would get hurt, in terms of I would never allow that to happen. And I think that while I do take full accountability, I'm fully aware of the things that I did post, the things that I did say. And while some of them I still agree with, and I can look back and say, you know what, I should not have done that. And I should not have done this, but I think it helped me grow a lot as a person, and it helped, my mom and I grow too. So.
Yeah, it almost forces growth on you, I tell a lot of people, it's good to struggle in life because it does force you to grow and change.
Totally.
And you definitely had to experience that. When I think about your situation, and of course, these videos are largely deleted off the internet, but people have pulled them and they're all over the place even still. I watch some of them and I go, you know what? It doesn't sound all that different from arguments that I would have had with my mom at a time in my teenage years where I just was filled with so much hatred, and I abundantly grateful that those were never filmed and posted, but I could see from a younger perspective in myself why I might have done something very similar, because you feel sort of powerless. The
feel
adults,
trapped.
Yes,
Exactly.
don't you? The adults
You
run
feel
everything
trapped.
and they're just telling you what to do, and you're sitting here and you're thinking, I have opinions of my own. Why am I not allowed to do these things? So that's what you were thinking. You're thinking, I have my own opinions. Interesting. Okay.
And there were also, of course, that's not to say that there were also, some things that were happening, in the home and outside the home that were not right. But a main part of it was I felt trapped, and that definitely stems from, feeling like my opinions weren't valid. And I'm in this big family where, they all, they loved Trump, and they were very conservative. Like, some of my uncles are rednecks, it's like that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I get that. And we forget that when we're in the heat of the moment, I think. And a runaway train goes. So I do love that you clarified on the abuse subject matter, because that is largely how this is covered, the relationship between you and your mom. Although we can acknowledge in watching those videos, there were some strong words said that probably should not be said to your daughter. And that's nothing that we would wish that anybody experience. You talked about the left picking up these videos, running with them, pedestalizing you as this figure, an activist, somebody who's speaking out and making change. And you fell for it, you said a little bit at the beginning. What was the moment you realized, oh, wait a minute, I might be being used here?
So when this I think was in 2021, I was still very much in the TikTok world. End of 2021, I was in my junior year of high school. I just started my junior year of high school, and I stepped away from social media, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, these people don't care about me. They don't want to see me win. They don't want to see me succeed. They are exploiting me. And it was specifically a day in 2021 where I was sitting, at my friend's house, and we were on Snapchat, of course. And the Daily Mail has these Snapchat little articles that you can click on, and they're very clickable. And one was, it said, ex-attorney tries to sex traffic Kellyanne Conway's daughter. And I was sitting there and I was like, what are you talking? It was horrific. I didn't even know what they were talking about. And I read this article, and it was like these men who were plotting to basically sex traffic me. And you can look it up. It's still an article. It was never taken down. 15 years old, 16 years old, doesn't matter. Right. So that was I think that was one of the key moments for me where I was like, what the hell? I was like, this is I'm a child. That's when I realized that like I should not, be putting myself out here as much as I am, because I'm literally a child. So when I turned 17, I stepped away from social media a lot. I still did some activism work. I was very big into like political advocacy. And I still am, just in a different way. And that's when I really was like, I'm done doing, the social media, whatever. And when I become an adult, I can revisit it. And so I'll be 20 this year, and now I am revisiting it, and hopefully we'll be rewriting my narrative this year.
Gotcha. And let's talk about that narrative. You said through this you've been engaging in political advocacy and still working on movements that mean something to you. I could see a common question being, how does one in your position actually decipher what means something to you? You get burned by conservatism in the way that you grew up, in the relationship that both your mother and father have with that sort of political ideology. I think a lot would levy the accusation that your leftism is a result of a rebellion towards your parents and towards Donald Trump and conservatism. Do you even identify as a leftist? Where do you stand politically, and how'd you figure that out? I'm registered to vote as independent. The way that from the culmination of everything that has happened to me, and from, growing and becoming more educated and, learning, I believe for myself that limiting myself to like one specific political ideology it's limiting. Putting myself in a box and saying, okay, I'm a liberal, I'm a leftist. That's so limiting, because it's like there are an array of issues that I have differing opinions on. I mean, do you want to talk to me about social issues? I'll have a different opinion. Do you want to talk to me about, the Second Amendment? I'll have a different opinion. Do you want to talk to me about, these LGBTQ issues that are going on right now? As somebody who is a part of the LGBTQ community, like, I have a very, very different opinion on that I think people, on the left would be upset about. And the social issues that I have, people on the right would be upset about. So it's been very hard to find kind of like a middle ground, because I, have a lot of conversations with a lot of my friends, my family, other people in this realm. And I can agree with people on the very far right, and I can agree with people on the very far left. So for me, I would not categorize myself into a specific political ideology or a political party. I'm not going to call myself a Democrat, and I'm not going to call myself a Republican. However, I think that my views are pretty moderate now. I think that, socially I tend to lean more left, because my views on like abortion and like whatnot, they're not changing. But I have a fair amount of conservative views now, to everyone's surprise. And I know I'm going to get flamed for saying that, but it's the truth. And I think that multiple truths can coexist at one time. So like, I can believe in, something that is seen as conservative, and I can also believe in something that is seen as liberal on two different fronts. So I came to that realization, over the past year, as I've been away from social media and as I've been learning and working with myself. I worked for a nonprofit a nonpartisan nonprofit that is for voter engagement. And I learned so much doing that work, trying to get people to vote, because it's not just like trying to get people to vote, for a certain agenda. It's just helping people register how to vote. And it was a nonpartisan thing. And that taught me so much that like, people are going to vote whether you like it or not, And I think that the extremism that we see on both sides is devastating in today's age. So yeah, I think that is amazing. I think you're really onto something there, that the next wave of, I guess, political consciousness is heterodox, as they call it, or politically homeless, where people are saying, you know what, neither of these sides I feel like is a full representation of myself. Just ask me about a specific issue and I'll tell you where I stand on it. Because these two sides, whatever you want to call them, are heavily invested in the fact that we are so tribal and that we refuse to let go of labels. So I find it very empowering to let go of labels and say,
Totally.
You know what? I don't know if I'm gonna just identify with a side right now. Let me know on the issues.
Totally.
And it sucks that you have to preface it and say, I know I'm gonna get flamed for this, for saying you have conservative beliefs. I mean,
I don't care.
Yeah, good.
I don't care. Flame me all you want. I don't care. I've been through enough. I don't care.
Yeah, she's like, have you seen the headlines about me? I'm over it. I can say it.
I'm so over it. You could say whatever you want about me. I just say how it is. And I think you specifically, why I'm so impressed by you and why I was so excited to do this is because I feel like you don't care what people are saying, and you facilitate actual discussions. You know, you're not just hating on people. You're not, saying, you're not saying what other people want you to say. You're talking about issues, and you're talking about them how they are, and you're facilitating conversations. And I think that is so important in today's age, because as somebody, I started watching you and I was like, okay, I'm a leftist. I started watching your videos and I was like, wait a second. I was like, I agree with every word coming out of this woman's mouth. So it's so important, because it's so important to facilitate those conversations and to not care what, the crowd is going with, right? Because as somebody who, I've been with women, I don't put a label on myself. I've been with women. I've been with men. I don't put a label on myself. Who knows where I will be, who I'm going to get married to, who knows? I think that, when you come out or whatever it is, you're fast tracked, especially when you're a public figure, like you're fast tracked into that leftism lane. Like you have to believe this, this, and this, or you're going against your own identity. And that's not true. And it's like, I have been, so vocal about issues in like the LGBTQ community and whatever, but it's gotten really out of hand as of recent. And I don't have to go into detail about it because I know you do all the time. And I agree. But it's kind of that kind of thing where if I were to speak about that, if I'm to speak about that, I'm going to get flamed from, the leftist side. I'm going to get absolutely flamed. I'm going to get called transphobic, homophobic. And I'm like, I'm not homophobic. I'm literally gay. Like, what do you like? It's like, it's that kind of thing. So I think it's super important to have discussions, to facilitate discussions about politics, about issues in the world, about everything in a respectful and educated way. And I think that's what you do. So I admire that.
Oh, thank you so much. I admire you for coming on and having this conversation, because I think you already know you can anticipate the wave of interest that's going to peak in you coming out and saying these things, because you have had a little quiet period. So we're going to see how this goes and how it's received. When I'm going to go once more to that idea of getting flamed, because I think the natural progression of things oftentimes is you grow up in a household with a certain set of ideology, and there is a child who just fully believes the ideology and it sticks with them their entire life. And I think that's what a lot of parents pray for, is that the child just believes it and moves on. Then you have the child who maybe believes it in their younger years, because what do you know when you're young, and then you rebel against your family and you swing hard to the other side, and then when you get to adulthood, you go, okay, maybe it's a healthy mix, and a lot of people feel that way. Totally. But we live in a culture where we're not encouraged to change our minds, to say that we were wrong, or to have discussions.
100%.
Yeah. So how has that been for you? Because I imagine if you're watching these videos, if you're having these thoughts personally, are you having these discussions with your mom and dad, with your friends, with your brothers and sisters, and how is that going?
100%.
If so?
100%. So I think that over the past few years, my mom and I mean, we have an amazing relationship now. Could not be better. She healed all of her past trauma. I healed my past trauma, and we're still growing every day. And my mom is my best friend. And I'm coming out of this quiet period, and I'm going to do it with my mom. I'm going to launch a podcast. I'm going to have her be my first guest, because I want to have these discussions, because we still disagree on so much. Even though there is a lot of overlap now, there's still so much we disagree on. And so when I speak to my family, as my little sisters are getting older, and they haven't been in the public light, which I'm very, very grateful for. My little sisters are both so intelligent, and when they have conversations about it, it really fascinates me, because I get to see what it's like for them to kind of think about, you know, what they believe in kind of in a similar way that I was. And so you're right. We do live in a culture where it's discouraged to change our minds. Everything's black and white. You either believe in this or you believe in this. You believe in this or you're a bigot, right? You have to say this or you're, you know, homophobic, racist, xenophobic, transphobic, all these, and on all the isms. And it's like, there multiple truths can exist at the same time, I think. And I think that's so important. And views are always changing. You know, we're always going to learn more. Nobody knows everything. I mean, you learn something new every day. You're always going to learn more and grow more. And things in this world are constantly changing. I posted something on Twitter. I've been kind of active on Twitter for a little bit. I posted something on Twitter about Biden's State of the Union speech and how I thought it was extremely hypocritical. And I mean, I just got torn into. Absolutely torn into.
How dare you change your mind?
And I was like, and I never supported Biden in the first place. You know, I always, I think, I don't have to get into that. But I don't have to get into.
We'll save it for the podcast.
I could sit here for hours. But you know, it was half a sentence I wrote on Twitter, and I said it really respectfully. And, you know, people were just flaming me like, oh, would you rather Trump in office? And I was like, nobody said that. I never said that. You're allowed to criticize your government. You know, you are allowed to say, hey, you know what? That's not right. And this is not okay. And, you know, nobody likes that anymore. You have to go with the grain. You have to go with the black or the white. You know, it's like vote for Joe, not for, you know, as my dad says, this is my dad's thing. He's like, vote for Joe, not the psycho. And it's like, and it's like for me, I won't give up some of my moral beliefs in order to fit a certain political ideology. I'm not going to give up, you know, who I am as a person, what I truly believe in to fit, you know, the true conservative ideology or the true leftist ideology. I'm not going to do that. And I think that's super important that we talk about this because you don't have to do that. I mean, nobody has to do that. You don't have to force yourself to fit into these boxes. Like, you can believe whatever you want to believe in. And if somebody doesn't like it, you know, they're not open-minded enough. Because I think it's what I've learned, something that has been so beneficial from my relationship with my parents, both my parents and, you know, what I'm grateful for having grown up in this life and in this area is that if you close yourself off to people with differing opinions than you, you will never grow, you will never learn, and you're going to go through life with this hatred in your heart, this anger towards other people who you won't give the time of day to, you won't listen to. So it is so important to have a conversation with somebody who has differing opinions than you, differing views than you. I talk about it all the time. Like, my mom and I had a conversation this morning. You know, we had a conversation about, you know, a certain policy, and we disagree on it heavily, but it's such an important conversation to have because it shows that you can be open-minded. Like, you can be open-minded and have a respectful conversation with other people. You can respectfully debate somebody. You can believe in something that other people in your political ideology don't believe. And yeah, I
think we're all an amalgamation of different views and experiences
Totally.
that shape us. And it sucks that we are forced into boxes. And, you know, you should confront people who have different ideas than you, because if you are intrigued by them, you end up changing your mind. If not, you end up with a stronger belief on the other end.
Exactly.
And that's why we should always allow ourselves to be challenged. Who was a person that broke through that for you and made you realize that? Because I can imagine through everything you've held pretty steadfast when you were in your teenage years towards certain beliefs and standing out against Trump and all these different things, and maybe there wasn't as much discussion happening in that period. Was there a specific person who really broke through to you?
I think that as kind of ironic as this is, as my mom and I, as our relationship got better, I think it was my mom, really, because she, you know, she is so... she's, you know, my best friend now. And, you know, I love her so much and I respect her so much. And that was a big thing for me. It was like, you know what? I respect this woman so much. I look up to her, you know, she's such an intelligent, independent woman. And I was like, how can I respect her if I don't agree with her? And I was like, oh, I can respect her and disagree with her. And I would not be as educated as I am without her. Without my dad. That's a fact, you know? And I grew up in such a politically charged household that I was surrounded all the time, you know? I knew so much about, you know, Obama's policies when I was in like the 4th grade, and I was just going to school talking to everybody, and I was like, what are you talking about? That's because of my parents, you know? And they really taught me to question things and to also educate myself. And I give kudos to both of my parents. I love them both extremely, extremely intelligent people. And I want to make that very clear that I do love my mom and that we are extremely close. And my mom specifically has really showed me that it is so important to keep an open mind, because she, just seeing her offline and, out of her work, I mean, most of her friends are like liberals, we went to an event yesterday and she's talking to, the most leftist people on this earth. And, she's with a smile on her face, listening to what they have to say. And that's so important. And that's all I have to say. It's so important to do that.
Love to hear that. I hope that's the next headline for you, because
I hope so too, but it never will be, because
I know
they want drama.
Right, they want the drama, because that's a beautiful thing. It's such a natural progression psychologically of the relationship between mothers and daughters. When you're born, it's mommy is everything. She's superwoman. I love her, and then you get into the teenage angst, and you battle your mother a little bit, and then as soon as you make it into adulthood, you realize, oh, she was once just like me and figuring life out, and I'm going to go through the same trials and tribulations when I'm older, and I have so much respect for my mother now. It's the same exact trajectory that I had with mine as well.
And it's so common. I mean, this is like the mother-daughter experience. Like,
it is.
Except the only difference was mine was public and exacerbated and extreme. So I don't know. I learned a lot from it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I am going to switch gears, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to have to ask you about this because I know your latest headlines have been more in your adulthood. I believe you're at age 18, Claudia. You decided to become a Playboy bunny. Is that correct?
Okay, so let me clarify this to everybody watching. I was presented with this idea from somebody at Playboy. Hope I don't get sued for whatever. I don't care. But they were like, hey, we're launching this women empowerment, body empowerment, LGBTQ empowerment campaign, and we'd love for you to, help with it. And I talked with my mom about it over and over. This was last year, and a little over a year ago. And I talked to her about it, and my mom was like, no. And I was like, no, because Playboy has this awful reputation when it comes to women. And, I'm not in the business of supporting things like that. So they came to me with a plan of how, they're helping women and supporting women or whatever, the feminist agenda. And I was like, sure, why not? And they were like, yeah, you just make an account and you don't have to do anything. I had no idea that it was girls were posting nude photos of themselves on Playboy. That's something, me personally, I don't believe in doing that. I would never do that. If other women do that, all more power to them, good for them. But that was not my intention with the Playboy thing. And I was thinking okay, I'll make a little money, they'll write an article about me, empowering women, and that'll be it. But it turned into this massive headline like it would have been, because, it's the sexualization. It's oh my God, Claudia Conway's at it again. She's doing something crazy again. And, I'm not doing that anymore. Obviously, I did that maybe for a month. I was involved in that.
Wow.
That made headlines. And my mom and we looked at it and we laughed, because we were just like, whatever. People are going to say whatever they want to say. And, I learned a lot from her, because, my mom has been in the news. She's in the news every day, of her saying something bizarre, or, somebody saying something about her. And she basically told me, who doesn't matter. You know who you are, you know what you're doing, and if other people want to spin it, that's fine. Was the Playboy thing a smart idea to sign off on and to do? Absolutely not. If either of my sisters said, hey, I'm doing this, I would lock them in a room for a week and not let them out. And I would cut them off from the outside world. I would not, this is nothing that, a young girl should be doing. But if they are, all power to them. I'm not here to shame anybody. But I feel like I also felt this anger because I was sexualized as a minor. And I kind of was like, they were telling me, you could take it back. You could take back your body and do a deal with Playboy and post selfies of yourself. And I was like, okay, you know what? If that's what it takes to take back, my body, take back my image. And obviously that's not a solution, but I was sexualized so much as a minor, and I was put through so much when I was 15 years old, people talking about my body, my sexuality. It kept me angry. And I was like, I need to take that back in some way. And, through Playboy, obviously not the right way to take it back, but, I'm working on, creating, outlets for other women, who have been exploited. And, I'm hopefully going to launch some of those this year and next year. And yeah, I think there are other ways to take back and rewrite your narrative than Playboy. That's what I'm going to say. And
I love to hear that.
Take accountability for that.
Yeah,
I can take accountability for that. Bad idea.
It clears up a lot. You are covered so differently, so to hear that you never even did naked photo shoots and nude shoots
oh my God,
like that.
absolutely not.
Unbelievable with the way.
You could not make me do any of that. I would never do that. I am an older sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a granddaughter. I would never, to be a role model for my little sisters, and I would never want them to see that and be like, okay, if she's doing that, then that's a good way to make money. No, I never did that. I never ever posted anything nude, anything like that. I would never do that. And yeah, that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. But there is some controversy surrounding nude pictures from 2021, I think, which that had to do with, somebody hacked into my mom's Twitter and posted something of me naked as a minor. I don't know what the picture was of or whatever, or even if there was any credibility, but that was also a big thing, like in the media. Like they just wanted to talk about it and talk about it and talk about like all these things that all they wanted to do. They kept talking about my body. They kept talking about the way I look, and and it was just like, it was disgusting to me. And like after, that whole thing, and like I said, that Daily Mail article in the beginning of our interview, I talked about it, that was when I was kind of like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not going to be exploited by the media. And so when I came back into it last year, they offered me, they were like, here, you can make X amount of money and empower women and take back your body. And I was like, okay, sure. And all I did on Playboy, you can literally go follow it. I don't know if it's still up or not, but you can go follow it. It's literally a selfie of my face, and that's it. So yeah, sorry, I talk.
So there you go. No, that's fine. Newsflash, everybody. The headlines are misleading. It's unbelievable.
Newsflash, I am not like, a nude model. I'm not a porn star. I am none of those things. At all whatsoever.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh, I wanna keep going here. We are running out of time on this interview, but I'm gonna hit some more hopefully important points for everybody who's listening. Despite all the different pushing and pulling from either side of the political spectrum, the way that you've been covered in headlines, I just gotta say, Claudia, you've turned out so extremely reasonable, and I'm so glad that you are brave enough to come on here and get back into the public eye, knowing how badly you've been burnt by this experience. I'm sure that you want to use this as a moment to advise other young women who might be going through similar things that you went through in your childhood and how you were treated by the media. What would you say to somebody who's struggling with politics in their family, is struggling with identity, everything you've mentioned throughout the duration of this interview?
Totally. Thank you for what you just said, by the way. It means a lot. And to any young girl watching who is, on social media or dealing with family and politics, I've always said this: stay true to what you believe in, but don't close yourself off from other beliefs, other views, because when you are that young, you want to think you're right and you know everything. And, reality, I thought the same thing. I was like, I know everything, I'm right, and I didn't. And I think what is so important is to keep an open mind, but to also, stay true to yourself and believe in yourself. And I think that's something that a lot of teenage girls lose sight of. They want to fall in with the crowd. They want to, go with the mob or whatever. But no, stay true to yourself and remember that as isolated as you may feel, whether it's in your family and your social life, on social media, mentally, emotionally, physically, you aren't. You know, you're never alone. There are a million other people going through the same exact thing, and we've all come out of it much stronger, much happier, much healthier. And look, I'm living testimony of that, I think. So if I can do it, you can do it too. I think that's what to take from this. And yeah.
Wow, I absolutely love to hear it. I think that's a brilliant note to end on, because so many people, I think, are going to hear your story now that they have clarity on it and go, yeah, that was my life as a teenager. Or there's going to be young girls listening right now, or young boys going, yeah, I feel a lot of the things that you are saying, especially
young boys too. Everybody, not just young girls, young boys too.
Yeah, everybody's feeling
totally.
it. Yeah.
Totally.
So thank you for that.
Of course.
We do close out these interviews typically. We're going to do a little rapid fire questionnaire for you. Take some of the air out of the room. Do something a little lighter. First question, Claudia, is favorite social media account, or one that you recommend people follow?
I think my Instagram. I'm going to start posting, fun little things on there. So Instagram.
Nice. Be on the lookout. Okay. F, marry, kill. Trump, Ron DeSantis, Tucker Carlson.
Oh my God. I think I would kill. Am I gonna get in trouble? Okay. I would probably.
This is all fun and games, guys.
I don't know. Maybe F Tucker Carlson, because I don't know. Maybe I feel like I don't know. Maybe marry Trump, because I probably could get something out of that, I think Melania is doing pretty good for herself, and probably kill Ron DeSantis. But that is not accurate whatsoever to everybody watching this.
Yes, make sure you get that clip. A book you recommend to the audience?
A book I recommend. I was just reading this book. It's called Untamed, and I think that everybody should read it.
Love it. Okay. Your favorite movie?
Oh my goodness. My favorite movie right now would probably be, I just watched Killers of the Flower Moon, and it was really good. So I like that movie.
Nice. Okay. Dancing with the Stars or American Idol?
Dancing with the Stars, and I could talk about it forever. If anybody from Dancing with the Stars is watching this, it is my dream to go on Dancing with the Stars. American Idol was a very interesting thing, so wouldn't do that again. Definitely would not do that again. Please don't go watch that, please. It's awful.
Any music or musical recommendations, since we're both theater kids?
Ooh. Oh no, I've been listening to a lot of from the Wicked soundtrack recently.
Okay.
Sorry guys. And a music artist, I believe. I really love Phoebe Bridgers. I think.
Oh, me too.
No way, really?
She's killer. I love her. Everything about her.
Killer. And I always like to say I've loved her for so long, and she's so big now, but I love Phoebe Bridgers. If you're watching this, I love you. So
that's amazing. Yeah, OG fan, love Phoebe Bridgers as well. I highly recommend her. People say that she's too indie for them, at least on this channel. They like to dog on Phoebe Bridgers, but
she's just poetic. I think she's poetic, and I think I like music that has something to say. I think
100%. Love that. Okay, and lastly, what is an issue you think that everybody should revisit?
An issue that I think everybody should revisit. I think that there is a lot of confusion and, hatred towards, gay people, lesbian people, bisexual people because of this new transgender movement. And I think it's important to separate those people who, just want to spew hatred, and those people who are actually willing to have a conversation about these transgender issues and how that may affect, the entire LGBTQ community, because not everything has to do with another. It's not just, one mutually exclusive thing. It's everybody has a separate identity, and not everybody, I'm not in the same box as, you know, somebody who identifies as asexual or somebody who identifies as transgender. So I think that's super important. I think there's a lot of, you know, homophobia surrounding the gay community in particular because of other issues that, you know, are separate from that. And I think that's something that everybody should really think about. Like when we talk about, you know, the transgender issues that are going on in this country right now, I think it's important to, you know, have respectful discussions about that and also have discussions about how that affects the movement as a whole and how, you know, we can, you know, make that a little better. So, because as a gay person myself, you know, I think that it's important to kind of separate different issues.
I think that's going to fall on very kind ears on this channel, at least. I think people can wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Claudia, thank you so much for spending this hour. Oh, it's been great. I was so looking forward and excited for this conversation because I knew we were just going to be on the same wavelength.
Totally.
We were going to vibe.
Literally, text me whenever. This was awesome.
Where can people follow you? Because I know you mentioned in here that you have a podcast coming.
Yes, I do have a podcast coming. Details will be out within the next month, and you can find information on that on my Twitter and Instagram, which are, my Instagram is Claudia M. Conway, and my Twitter is Claudia Conway with 2 Y's. And I don't really use TikTok anymore. That's not really a thing I do, but if you want to go follow that, it's Claudia M. Conway, but I doubt you'll see anything from me on there. So yeah.
Love that. Claudia, thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun and such an honor, and I hope you have a good day.
Love it. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we post a video for you guys, which is every day. And let me know who we want to interview next on this channel, and we'll try to make it happen.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.